My ex-girlfriend stalked me across state after I caught her cheating with a coworker, so I got a restraining order but she violated it and followed me. Then she got arrested. I'm posting this because I need advice on how to handle a situation that's getting out of control. My ex-girlfriend has been following me and showing up places where I live now, even though I moved to a different state to get away from her. I met Jessica, 27F, at a marketing conference in Chicago 2 years ago. I'm Mike, 31M, and I work in digital advertising. She worked for a competing agency but we hit it off immediately during one of those networking happy hours. We exchanged numbers and started texting constantly. Within a month, she had transferred to my company's Chicago office. The first 6 months were incredible. We spent every weekend together exploring the city. She would surprise me with tickets to Cubs games or reservations at restaurants I mentioned wanting to try. I introduced her to my family during Thanksgiving, and my mom still asks about her. Jessica had this way of making everyone around her laugh. She could walk into a room and within minutes have complete strangers sharing their life stories with her. But there were warning signs I ignored. She would get upset if I made plans with friends without including her. When my college roommate visited for a weekend, she insisted on joining us for everything, even when he clearly wanted just guy time. She would scroll through my phone when I was in the shower, claiming she was just checking the time or weather. I convinced myself these were normal relationship things. The first major incident happened last spring. I had been working late on a campaign for a major client. The deadline was brutal and I was staying at the office until 9 or 10 every night for 2 weeks. One Thursday, I came home to find Jessica packing a suitcase. She said she couldn't handle dating someone who didn't prioritize their relationship. I tried explaining about the project deadline, but she cut me off. She said I was making excuses and that if I really cared about us, I would find a way to balance work better. Then she did something that still makes my stomach turn. She called my boss the next morning and told him that our relationship was affecting my work performance and that I had been distracted and making mistakes on the campaign. She claimed she was concerned about my well-being and thought maybe I needed a mental health break. My boss called me into his office that afternoon. He didn't fire me, but he made it clear that my personal life needed to stay out of the workplace. I had to work twice as hard for the next month to prove I was still reliable. When I confronted Jessica about the phone call, she denied it at first. Then she said she was trying to help me because I was clearly overwhelmed. We had a huge fight and she moved out of my apartment that weekend. I thought it was over. But 3 weeks later, she showed up at my office with coffee and bagels from my favorite place. She apologized and said she had been scared of losing me and reacted poorly. She cried and admitted she had trust issues from her previous relationship where her ex had cheated on her with a coworker. She promised she would never interfere with my job again. Like an idiot, I believed her. We got back together in June. For the next 8 months, things seemed stable. We moved in together in August. She stopped checking my phone and gave me space when I needed to work late. We started talking about getting married and maybe buying a house outside the city. I even looked at engagement rings online and started saving money for a down payment. Then in February, everything fell apart again. I had been working on a huge presentation for a potential client. The account would have been worth millions to our agency. I was staying late every night and working weekends to make sure everything was perfect. Jessica seemed understanding at first. She would bring me dinner at the office and wait while I finished up. But after 3 weeks of this schedule, she started complaining that I was neglecting her. She said I cared more about work than our relationship. I tried explaining that this was temporary and that landing this client could lead to a promotion that would benefit both of us. She would nod and seem to agree, but then an hour later she would bring it up again. One night, I came home around 11 to find her on the couch with a bottle of wine, scrolling through her phone. She looked up and said she had been thinking about our future and wasn't sure we wanted the same things. I sat down next to her and asked what she meant. She said she felt like she was competing with my career for my attention and that maybe we should take a break to figure things out. I was confused because just the week before, she had been talking about visiting her parents for Easter and wanted me to come with her. I asked if this was about my work schedule and promised that things would go back to normal after the presentation. She shook her head and said it was bigger than that. She needed space to think about what she wanted from a relationship. The next morning, I noticed she had been texting someone constantly. Every time I walked into the room, she would flip her phone over or close the messaging app. When I asked about it, she said it was just her sister helping her work through some things. But I had met her sister multiple times and knew she lived in Portland and worked nights as a nurse. It seemed unlikely they would be texting at 10 in the morning on a Tuesday. I probably should have pushed the issue, but I was focused on finishing my presentation. The client meeting was scheduled for the following Friday, and I knew I couldn't afford any distractions. I figured we would work through whatever was bothering her after I landed the account. The presentation went well. The client seemed impressed and said they would have a decision by the end of the month. I was relieved and ready to focus on fixing things with Jessica. But when I got home that night, she wasn't there. Her clothes were gone from our closet and she had taken her bathroom stuff. There was a note on the kitchen counter saying she needed more time to think and would be staying with a friend. I called her multiple times over the next few days, but she didn't answer. Finally, she texted me saying she wasn't ready to talk and asked me to give her space. I was frustrated but decided to respect her wishes. I figured she would come around once she realized how much she missed what we had. 2 weeks later, my coworker David mentioned seeing Jessica at a restaurant downtown with some guy he didn't recognize. He said they seemed pretty cozy and were holding hands across the table. When I asked him to describe the guy, it sounded like Mark, someone Jessica had mentioned working with on a few projects. She had talked about him several times over the past month, always mentioning how funny he was or how he had helped her with something at work. I decided to drive by her office building during lunch to see if I could spot them together. I felt stupid doing it, but I needed to know what was going on. Sure enough, I saw them walking out of the building together, laughing about something. She had her hand on his arm and they got into his car together. That night, I texted Jessica asking if we could meet to talk. She agreed and suggested meeting at the coffee shop where we had our first official date. I thought maybe that was a good sign. When I got there, she was already sitting at a corner table with 2 cups of coffee. She looked nervous and kept fidgeting with her bracelet. I sat down and asked her directly if she was seeing someone else. She denied it at first, then admitted she had been spending time with Mark but insisted it was just as friends. She said he was helping her figure out what she wanted from her life and from relationships. I told her I had seen them together and that it didn't look like friendship to me. She got defensive and said I was being paranoid and controlling. She claimed that my accusation proved we weren't right for each other because I didn't trust her. She said Mark made her feel appreciated and valued in a way that I didn't. I asked her if she had been planning this whole break so she could explore things with Mark without technically cheating. She got upset and said I was twisting everything around. She insisted she hadn't done anything wrong because we were on a break and she was allowed to talk to other people. I told her that maybe she was right and we weren't compatible. I said I needed someone who would communicate with me when they were having doubts instead of manufacturing a crisis and using it as an excuse to test drive a replacement. She started crying and said that wasn't what happened, but I had already made up my mind. I told her I was done and walked out of the coffee shop. She followed me to my car and kept apologizing, saying she had made a mistake and wanted to work things out. I drove home and blocked her number. The next few weeks were rough. I kept expecting her to show up at my apartment or at work, but she didn't. My friend Tom told me she had been asking mutual friends about me and seemed genuinely upset that I wouldn't talk to her. Part of me wondered if I had been too harsh, but then I would remember how she had been texting Mark while telling me she needed space to think about us. In April, I got an offer to transfer to our Austin office. The position came with a raise and would put me in charge of a small team. I had been hoping for a management opportunity for years. I also knew it would give me a fresh start away from all the memories of Jessica. I accepted the offer and put in my notice at the Chicago office. I used the money I had been saving for an engagement ring and house down payment to move to Austin and get set up in a new apartment. It felt good to have a purpose for that money instead of it just sitting in my savings account reminding me of plans that would never happen. Update 1: I thought moving to Austin would be the end of my Jessica drama, but I was wrong. Things have gotten much weirder and I'm starting to get concerned about her behavior. About a week after I moved, my friend Tom called me from Chicago. He said Jessica had been asking him a lot of questions about my move. She wanted to know which company office I was working at, where I was living, and if I was dating anyone new. Tom said he didn't give her any specific information, but he was worried about why she was so interested in my life after I had made it clear I didn't want to stay in touch. I told Tom not to worry about it and asked him not to share any details about my life with her if she asked again. I figured she was probably just curious and would lose interest once she realized I was serious about cutting contact. 2 weeks later, I was grabbing lunch at a food truck near my office when I got a text from an unknown number. The message said it was Jessica and that she had gotten my new number from Tom. She said she had been thinking about me and hoped I was settling in well in Austin. She asked if we could talk sometime soon because she had some things she wanted to explain. I was annoyed that Tom had given her my number after I specifically asked him not to share information about me. When I called him, he swore he hadn't given it to her. He said she must have gotten it some other way. Later, I realized she probably got it from our mutual friend Lisa, who had my new number and didn't know about the situation with Jessica. I decided not to respond to Jessica's text. I figured ignoring her would send a clear message that I wasn't interested in reconnecting. But the texts kept coming. She would send me photos of places in Chicago we used to go together, or screenshots of articles she thought I would find interesting. She never said anything dramatic or demanding, but the constant contact was irritating. After about a week of daily texts, I finally responded telling her to stop contacting me. I said I was trying to move on and her messages were making that difficult. She replied apologizing and saying she understood, but then asked if we could have one conversation to clear the air. I didn't respond. The text stopped for a few days, and I thought that was the end of it. But then last weekend, something happened that really freaked me out. I had plans to meet some coworkers at a bar downtown. It was one of those trendy places with craft cocktails and a rooftop patio. I got there early and was sitting at the bar waiting for everyone else when I felt someone tap my shoulder. I turned around and there was Jessica, smiling and acting like running into me was the most natural thing in the world. She looked different. She had cut her hair shorter and was wearing an outfit I had never seen before. She seemed nervous but was trying to play it cool. She asked how I liked Austin and said she was in town visiting a friend. She suggested we grab a table and catch up while I waited for my coworkers. I was completely caught off guard. I asked her how she had known I would be at that specific bar. She said her friend had recommended it and that running into me was just a coincidence. But Austin is a big city with hundreds of bars and restaurants. The odds of randomly running into someone at the exact place and time they happened to be there seemed pretty slim. I told her I wasn't comfortable talking and that I was meeting people soon. She looked hurt and said she had hoped we could be mature about everything and at least be friendly. She said she wasn't trying to get back together, she just wanted to clear the air between us. I stayed firm and said I didn't think that was a good idea. She nodded and said she understood, but then she lingered for another few minutes making small talk about the bar and asking about my job. Finally, my coworkers showed up and she excused herself. After she left, I couldn't stop thinking about how she had ended up at that bar. I had only decided to meet there a few hours earlier when my coworker suggested it. I hadn't posted about it on social media or mentioned it to anyone who might have told her. The only way she could have known was if she had been following me or watching my apartment to see where I went. The next morning, I checked her social media accounts. Her Instagram showed she had posted a photo from downtown Austin the night before, tagged at a restaurant about 6 blocks from the bar where I saw her. But when I looked at her location history on other posts, she had been in Chicago as recently as 3 days earlier. It seemed like she had made a special trip to Austin specifically to find me. I decided to do some more investigating. I called the restaurant where she had posted the photo and asked if they had a reservation under her name for Saturday night. The hostess confirmed they had, but said the reservation was for one person and she had only stayed for about 30 minutes. That timing would have put her at my bar right around when I arrived. I also noticed she had been liking posts from Austin-based accounts on Instagram, including some from the neighborhood where I live. One of them was from a coffee shop 2 blocks from my apartment that I go to most mornings. She had liked several of their recent posts, which seemed odd for someone who supposedly didn't know the area. When I got to work on Monday, I told my manager about the situation. I didn't go into all the details, but I explained that I had an ex-girlfriend who seemed to be following me and I was concerned about her showing up at the office. He said he would alert security and let the front desk know to call him if anyone came looking for me. I also reached out to my landlord to ask about changing the locks on my apartment. He said he could do it for a fee, but wanted to know why. I gave him a vague explanation about security concerns. He agreed to have the locks changed by the end of the week. I haven't heard from Jessica since the bar incident, but I keep checking over my shoulder when I'm out in public. I've also been varying my routine so I'm not going to the same places at the same times every day. I know it sounds paranoid, but the whole situation has me on edge. I'm not sure what her endgame is. If she wanted to get back together, I would expect her to be more direct about it. But the sneaky way she showed up at the bar and her claim that it was a coincidence makes me think she's trying to manipulate the situation somehow. Maybe she thinks if we keep running into each other accidentally, I'll eventually be willing to talk to her. I'm considering getting a restraining order, but I'm not sure if I have enough evidence yet. She hasn't threatened me or done anything obviously illegal. But the pattern of behavior is definitely concerning, and I don't want it to escalate further. Update 2: the situation with Jessica has gotten much worse. I'm now dealing with legal issues and my family has gotten involved in ways I never expected. About 2 weeks after my last update, Jessica showed up at my apartment. I was coming home from the gym around 7 in the evening when I saw her sitting on the steps outside my building. She stood up when she saw me and started walking toward me. I told her she needed to leave immediately, but she said she had driven all the way from Chicago and just wanted 5 minutes to explain herself. I repeated that she needed to leave and started walking toward my building entrance. She followed me and said she knew I was angry but that I wasn't giving her a chance to apologize properly. I ignored her and went inside, but she caught the door before it closed and followed me into the lobby. At that point, I turned around and told her clearly that if she didn't leave right now, I was going to call the police. She started crying and said she couldn't understand why I was being so cruel to her. She said all she wanted was closure and that I owed her that much after 2 years together. I took out my phone and started dialing 911. She quickly said she was leaving and walked out of the building. I watched through the window as she got into a rental car and drove away. I called the police anyway and filed a report about the incident. The officer who took my statement said they would keep a record of it, but there wasn't much they could do unless she came back or threatened me directly. I thought that would be the end of it, but I was wrong again. 3 days later, I got a call at work from my mom. She was upset and confused. She said Jessica had called her that morning, crying and asking for help. Jessica told my mom that we had broken up because of a misunderstanding and that I was refusing to talk to her. She asked my mom to convince me to give her another chance. My mom said she told Jessica that our relationship was none of her business and that she shouldn't be calling our family. But Jessica kept calling back throughout the day. She called my mom's work number, my dad's cell phone, and even my sister's apartment. She told each of them a slightly different version of our breakup story, always painting herself as the victim who just wanted to make things right. By evening, Jessica had also found my grandparents' phone number and called them. My grandmother, who is 83 and doesn't understand modern dating very well, was completely confused by the call. Jessica told her that I was depressed and isolating myself from people who cared about me. She said she was worried about my mental health and asked my grandmother to convince me to call her. My poor grandmother called my mom in tears, thinking something terrible had happened to me. My mom had to explain the whole situation and assure her that I was fine and that Jessica was lying. My grandmother was embarrassed that she had been fooled and angry that someone had taken advantage of her concern for me. I was furious when my mom told me about the phone calls. Involving my family, especially my elderly grandparents, crossed a line that I hadn't even known existed. I called the police in Austin and asked about getting a restraining order. They said the phone calls to my family could be considered harassment and that I had enough evidence to apply for a protective order. I spent the next day gathering documentation. I printed out screenshots of all her texts, wrote down dates and details of every time she had contacted me or shown up somewhere I was, and got statements from my family members about the phone calls. I also called Tom in Chicago and asked him to write down everything Jessica had said to him about me. When I submitted the paperwork for the protective order, I also found out some disturbing information. The clerk who processed my application mentioned that Jessica had been in the courthouse the week before, asking questions about how to find someone's address and workplace if you only knew their name and what city they lived in. She had claimed she was trying to locate an old friend, but the clerk remembered her because she had been very persistent and seemed upset when she was told that information wasn't public record. This explained how Jessica had found my apartment and possibly my workplace. She had been actively investigating my life and trying to track down my personal information. The thought of her doing research on me like I was some kind of target made my skin crawl. The protective order was approved within 3 days. It prohibited Jessica from contacting me directly or indirectly, from coming within 500 feet of my home or workplace, and from contacting any of my family members. I was relieved to have legal protection, but I also knew that a piece of paper wouldn't actually stop her if she was determined to keep bothering me. I was right to be concerned. 2 weeks after the protective order was issued, Jessica violated it in a way that showed how far she was willing to go. I was at a work conference in Dallas. Our company had sent several people to attend presentations and network with potential clients. On the second day, I was walking back to my hotel after a dinner event when I noticed someone following me. At first, I thought I was being paranoid, but when I stopped to look in a store window, the person stopped too. When I crossed the street, they crossed behind me. I ducked into a hotel lobby and waited by the elevator bank where I could see the entrance. After a few minutes, Jessica walked in. She looked around the lobby like she was searching for someone, then pulled out her phone and started typing. A few seconds later, my phone buzzed with a text from the same unknown number she had used before. The message said she knew I was in Dallas and wanted to meet for coffee to discuss the protective order. I was amazed that she had not only figured out I was in Dallas, but had managed to track me to the specific hotel where I was staying. I called the police from the hotel lobby and reported that someone with a restraining order against them was following me. The officer who responded said they would look into it, but Jessica was gone by the time they arrived. The next morning, I got a call from my lawyer in Austin. Jessica had contacted his office and claimed that the protective order was based on false information. She said she wanted to contest it and requested a hearing. My lawyer said this was her legal right, but warned me that it meant I would have to face her in court and that she would be allowed to present her side of the story. I was dreading the court hearing, but it turned out to be the best thing that could have happened. Jessica showed up with a folder full of printed emails, text messages, and social media posts. She claimed these proved that I had been leading her on and that she had a right to try to contact me. But when the judge looked through her evidence, it became clear that most of it was completely fabricated. She had created fake text conversations that showed me asking her to visit me in Austin. She had printed emails that were supposedly for me, but when my lawyer checked the metadata, they had been created on her computer the day before the hearing. Most disturbing was a social media post she claimed I had written about missing her. But when the judge asked me to log into my account in court, the post wasn't there. Jessica had somehow created a fake version of my profile and used it to make a post that supported her story. The judge was not impressed. He extended the protective order for a full year and added additional restrictions. Jessica was now prohibited from creating fake social media accounts, from hiring anyone to contact me on her behalf, and from traveling to Austin without permission from the court. He also ordered her to surrender her passport to prevent her from leaving the country to avoid the order. As Jessica was leaving the courthouse, she walked past me and said quietly that this wasn't over. My lawyer heard her and immediately reported the comment to the bailiff. Jessica was brought back into the courtroom and given a formal warning about violating the protective order with threats. I thought that would finally be the end of it, but Jessica's behavior had already caused damage that couldn't be undone. My family was shaken by her phone calls and worried about my safety. My work colleagues who had been at the Dallas conference were asking questions about why police had come to our hotel. I had to explain the situation to my manager, which was embarrassing and made me worry about how it might affect my career. I also found out that Jessica had been contacting people from my past, trying to gather information about me. She had reached out to my college friends, former coworkers, and even my high school girlfriend. She told each of them that she was planning a surprise for me and needed help tracking down my current contact information. Fortunately, most of them were smart enough not to give her anything, but the fact that she had gone to those lengths was terrifying. Update 3: I'm writing this final update because the situation with Jessica has finally come to an end, though not in a way I expected. For about a month after the court hearing, things were quiet. Jessica didn't contact me directly, and I didn't see any signs that she was still trying to track my movements. I started to relax and thought maybe the extended protective order and the judge's stern warnings had finally gotten through to her. But then I got a call from Detective Rodriguez with the Austin Police Department. He said they had been contacted by police in Chicago about Jessica's behavior. Apparently, after the court hearing, she had returned to Chicago and immediately started harassing her coworker Mark, the guy she had been seeing when we broke up. According to the Chicago police, Jessica had been showing up at Mark's apartment and workplace, demanding that he explain why their relationship had ended. She had been sending him dozens of texts per day and calling him at all hours. When Mark blocked her number, she started using different phones and fake numbers to continue contacting him. The situation escalated when Jessica broke into Mark's apartment while he was at work. She didn't steal anything, but she had rearranged his furniture and left a note saying she knew he still had feelings for her and that they needed to talk. Mark came home to find his locks had been tampered with and called the police immediately. When Chicago police arrested Jessica for breaking and entering, they found something concerning in her car. She had printed maps of Austin with my apartment building, my office, and several places I regularly went marked with red circles. She also had a folder with photos of me that had been taken without my knowledge, including some that showed me walking to my car and entering my building. Detective Rodriguez said the Chicago police had shared this information because it showed Jessica was still actively planning to violate the protective order I had against her. He said they were upgrading the charges against her to include stalking across state lines, which was a federal crime. The detective also told me something that made my stomach turn. When they searched Jessica's apartment in Chicago, they found she had been keeping detailed logs of my daily routine. She had somehow figured out what time I went to work, when I went to the gym, where I bought groceries, and even what coffee shop I stopped at most mornings. She had been gathering this information for weeks, possibly by paying someone in Austin to watch me or by hacking into my social media accounts to track my location. They also found evidence that she had been researching how to change her appearance and identity. She had looked up information about getting fake IDs, changing her hair color and style, and even how to alter her voice. The police believed she was planning to show up in Austin again, but disguised so I wouldn't recognize her immediately. This discovery led to additional charges against Jessica. She was now facing federal stalking charges, breaking and entering, identity fraud for the fake social media accounts, and violation of a protective order. Her lawyer tried to argue that she was having a mental health crisis and needed treatment rather than jail time, but the judge wasn't sympathetic given the extensive evidence of premeditation. Jessica was sentenced to 18 months in federal prison, followed by 3 years of supervised probation. The terms of her probation include mandatory counseling, no contact with me or my family, and restrictions on her internet usage and social media accounts. But the most significant development came from an unexpected source. Mark, the coworker Jessica had been involved with during our breakup, reached out to me through my lawyer. He wanted to apologize and share information about what Jessica had told him about our relationship. According to Mark, Jessica had lied to him about almost everything. She had told him that I was emotionally abusive and controlling, and that I had cheated on her multiple times. She said I had threatened her when she tried to break up with me and that she was afraid of what I might do if I found out about their relationship. Mark said he now realized that Jessica had been manipulating him the same way she had manipulated our relationship. She had created drama and conflict where none existed, then used the chaos as an excuse to justify her behavior. He said she had done similar things to him, including showing up at his workplace unannounced and going through his personal belongings when he wasn't home. Most importantly, Mark confirmed something I had suspected but couldn't prove. Jessica had been planning to leave me for him long before she asked for a break. She had been setting up the new relationship while still living with me, then manufactured a crisis in our relationship to give herself an excuse to explore other options without technically cheating. Mark also revealed that Jessica had told him about my work schedule and presentation deadlines. She had been keeping track of when I would be busy and unavailable, then used those times to meet with Mark and plan their relationship. She had actually hoped I would be too distracted with work to notice the changes in her behavior. This information was both validating and disturbing. It confirmed that my instincts about her behavior had been correct, but it also showed how calculated and manipulative she had been throughout our entire relationship. The legal resolution brought me some peace of mind, but the experience changed how I approach relationships and trust. I'm more cautious about sharing personal information and location details on social media. I've also learned to trust my instincts when something feels off, rather than giving people the benefit of the doubt when their actions don't match their words. My family has recovered from the stress of Jessica's phone calls, though my grandmother still asks about the situation occasionally. My coworkers have stopped asking questions about what happened in Dallas, and my manager has been supportive throughout the whole process. I haven't started dating anyone new yet. The experience with Jessica made me realize I need to work on recognizing red flags earlier in relationships. I also want to make sure I'm completely past this situation before I involve someone else in my life. Jessica will be in prison for the next 1.5 years, and after that, she'll be prohibited from contacting me for 3 more years. I hope that gives her enough time to get the help she needs and move on with her life. I also hope it gives me enough time to fully put this chapter behind me and focus on building a healthier future. The whole experience taught me that sometimes the people we think we know best are actually strangers, and that love doesn't excuse or justify stalking, manipulation, or harassment. I'm grateful for the support of my family, friends, and the legal system in helping me get through this situation safely. Now let's move to the next story. Story 2. I caught my sister cheating the day of her wedding and kept it secret. Months later, I told her husband and my entire family turned against me. I never thought I'd be writing this, but I'm still in shock about what happened at my sister's wedding last weekend. I'm Sean, 29M, and my sister Sarah, 27F, was getting married to her fiancé Shane, 28M. They'd been together for 3 years, and I was thrilled for them. Shane seemed like a great guy, and he made Sarah happier than I'd ever seen her. To give you some background, Sarah and I have always been close. We grew up in a small town in Ohio, where everyone knew everyone else's business. Our parents, both teachers, instilled in us the importance of honesty and family. Sarah was always the more outgoing one, involved in every school club and activity, while I was quieter, more focused on my studies. Despite our differences, we always had each other's backs. When Sarah met Shane at a mutual friend's barbecue 3 years ago, I could tell it was different from her previous relationships. Shane was kind, funny, and shared Sarah's love for adventure. They clicked instantly, and within 6 months, they were talking about moving in together. I remember helping them move into their first apartment, a tiny one-bedroom place that barely fit their combined possessions. But they were so happy, it didn't matter that they had to squeeze past each other in the narrow hallway. As the bride's brother, I was heavily involved in the wedding planning. Sarah asked me to be her man of honor, a role I was honored to accept. I helped with everything from venue selection to taste testing cakes. Shane appreciated my involvement too, often joking that he was glad to have a man on the inside to help navigate all the wedding chaos. The months leading up to the wedding were a whirlwind of activity. Sarah and Shane decided on a romantic outdoor ceremony at a local vineyard. I spent countless hours helping them choose everything from the perfect shade of blue for the bridesmaids' dresses to the right mix of flowers for the centerpieces. It was exhausting, but seeing how happy it made Sarah made it all worth it. The day before the wedding, I was running around making sure all the last-minute details were in order. I checked on the flowers, made sure the DJ had the right playlist, and even helped some out-of-town guests find their hotel. Everything was going smoothly, and I was feeling pretty proud of myself. That evening, we had a small rehearsal dinner at our parents' house. It was a casual affair, just close family and the wedding party. Sarah and Shane were glowing with happiness, stealing kisses when they thought no one was looking. Our mom made her famous lasagna, and we all sat around sharing stories and laughing. It felt like the perfect start to what should have been the happiest weekend of Sarah's life. The morning of the wedding arrived, and I woke up early to start getting things ready. I helped set up the ceremony space, checked in with the catering staff, and made sure the groomsmen knew where they needed to be. As the guests started arriving, I felt a mix of excitement and nerves. This was it, my little sister was getting married. About an hour before the ceremony was set to begin, my mom asked me to check on Sarah. I knocked on the door of the bridal suite, and when I entered, I found Sarah sitting alone, still in her robe. Her hair and makeup were done, but she hadn't put on her dress yet. I immediately sensed something was wrong. "Hey, what's going on?" I asked, sitting down next to her. "You're not dressed yet. Is everything okay?" Sarah looked at me with tears in her eyes. "I don't know if I can do this, Sean," she whispered. I was shocked. Sarah had been so excited about the wedding, counting down the days for months. "What do you mean? Are you just feeling nervous?" She shook her head. "It's not just nerves. I think I made a mistake." My heart sank. "What kind of mistake?" Sarah took a deep breath and said, "I slept with someone else last night." I felt like the world had stopped spinning. "What? Who? When?" She started crying harder. "It was at my bachelorette party last weekend. You remember Tom, 29M, my ex from college? He was bartending at the club we went to. We started talking, and one thing led to another. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Sarah and Tom had dated for 2 years in college, and their breakup had been messy. Tom had cheated on Sarah with her roommate, leaving her heartbroken. It had taken her months to get over him, and I thought she was long past those feelings. "Does Shane know?" I asked, already dreading the answer. Sarah shook her head. "I haven't told him. I don't know what to do, Sean. I love Shane, I really do. But seeing Tom brought back all these old feelings, and I'm so confused." I sat there in stunned silence, trying to process everything. Part of me wanted to tell Shane immediately, he deserved to know the truth before marrying Sarah. But another part of me hesitated. There were 200 guests out there, waiting for a wedding. Shane's family had flown in from across the country. Could I really blow everything up moments before the ceremony? "Sarah, you have to tell Shane," I finally said. "He needs to know before he marries you." She grabbed my arm, panic in her eyes. "No. Please, Sean, I can't. Not now. I'll tell him after the honeymoon, I promise. I just need some time to figure things out." I shook my head. "This isn't right, Sarah. Shane deserves to know. Please," she begged. "Just give me a few days. I'll sort everything out, I swear. Don't ruin this day for everyone." I stood up, conflicted. "I need some air," I muttered, heading for the door. As I stepped into the hallway, I nearly ran into Shane. He was grinning from ear to ear, looking handsome in his tuxedo. "Hey, man," he said, clapping me on the shoulder. "How's my bride doing? Is she ready?" I froze, not knowing what to say. Shane's happy face made my stomach churn with guilt. How could I destroy his world just minutes before he was supposed to say I do? In that moment, I made a decision I'm not sure I'll ever forgive myself for. I forced a smile and said, "She's just finishing up. Wedding day jitters, you know?" Shane laughed. "Tell her to hurry up. I can't wait to marry her." As he walked away, I felt like the worst brother, and the worst friend, in the world. The ceremony started, and I watched as Sarah walked down the aisle, a forced smile on her face. Shane beamed at her, completely unaware of the betrayal. They said their vows, exchanged rings, and were pronounced husband and wife. Throughout the reception, I could barely eat or drink. Every time I saw Shane's happy face, I felt sick to my stomach. I kept thinking about all the times Shane had confided in me about how much he loved Sarah, how he couldn't wait to start their life together. And now, I was complicit in this massive lie. As the best man, I had to give a speech. I stood up, my hands shaking as I held the microphone. I looked out at the crowd, at Shane's beaming face, at Sarah's forced smile, and I felt like a fraud. I managed to get through the speech, talking about love and commitment, all the while knowing the truth that could shatter everything. The rest of the reception passed in a blur. I danced with Sarah during the sibling dance, and I could feel how tense she was. "Are you okay?" I whispered. She just nodded, her eyes avoiding mine. It's been a week now, and Sarah and Shane are on their honeymoon. As far as I know, she still hasn't told him the truth. I'm torn between loyalty to my sister and feeling like Shane deserves to know. Should I have stopped the wedding? Should I tell Shane now? I don't know what to do, and the guilt is eating me alive. Every time my phone rings, I jump, thinking it might be Sarah finally coming clean, or Shane calling to confront me. I can't sleep, I can't eat. I keep replaying that moment in the bridal suite, wondering what would have happened if I had made a different choice. I know our parents would be devastated if they knew. They raised us to be honest, to do the right thing. What would they think if they knew I had helped Sarah keep this secret? I'm at a loss. Do I continue to keep this secret and hope Sarah eventually tells Shane the truth? Or do I take matters into my own hands and tell Shane myself? Either way, I feel like I'm betraying someone I care about. How did I end up in this impossible situation? Update 1. It's been a month since my last post, and a lot has happened. I appreciate all the advice and support from everyone who commented. I've been grappling with this situation, and I finally decided I couldn't keep quiet any longer. 2 weeks ago, Sarah and Shane returned from their honeymoon. They seemed happy, posting pictures of their trip on social media and gushing about married life. I tried to give Sarah the benefit of the doubt, hoping she had told Shane the truth as she promised. I invited Sarah out for coffee, determined to find out if she had come clean. We met at the little cafe where we used to study together in high school. As soon as I saw her, I could tell something was off. She seemed nervous and fidgety, nothing like her usual confident self. "So," I said, trying to keep my voice calm, "how was the honeymoon?" Sarah smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "It was great. Shane and I had an amazing time. We went snorkeling, tried all these exotic foods." I let her ramble on for a bit, describing their adventures. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Finally, I took a deep breath and asked the question that had been eating at me for weeks. "Did you tell him?" Her face fell, and I knew the answer before she spoke. "I couldn't do it, Sean. We were having such a wonderful time, and I couldn't bring myself to ruin everything." I felt a surge of anger. "Sarah, you promised. Shane deserves to know the truth." She started crying, mascara running down her cheeks. I know. But I love him so much. It was a stupid mistake, and it will never happen again. Can't we just forget about it?" I shook my head. "No, we can't. This isn't fair to Shane, and it's not fair to me to keep this secret." Sarah begged me not to say anything, but I knew I couldn't stay silent any longer. I told her she had 24 hours to tell Shane herself, or I would do it. The next day was one of the longest of my life. I kept checking my phone, hoping to hear from Sarah or Shane. But as the hours ticked by, there was nothing but silence. Finally, just as I was about to call Shane myself, my phone rang. It was Shane. His voice was shaky, and I could tell he had been crying. "Is it true?" he asked. "Did Sarah really cheat on me?" My heart sank. "Yes," I said quietly. "I'm so sorry, Shane." He was silent for a long moment. Then he asked, "Did you know? Before the wedding?" I couldn't lie to him. "Yes," I admitted. "Sarah told me the morning of the wedding. I'm sorry I didn't tell you then. I made a terrible mistake." Shane's voice turned cold. "You're right. You did make a mistake. Both of you betrayed me." He hung up, and I felt awful. I knew I had done the right thing by telling the truth, but I also knew I had waited far too long. Over the next few days, I tried to reach out to both Sarah and Shane, but neither of them would respond to my calls or messages. I heard through family that Shane had moved out of their apartment and was staying with a friend. Sarah finally called me a week later, sobbing. She said Shane was filing for an annulment and wanted nothing to do with her. She blamed me for ruining her marriage. "You should have kept your mouth shut," she yelled. "We could have worked through this." I tried to reason with her. "Sarah, this is not my fault. You're the one who cheated, and you're the one who lied. Shane deserved to know the truth." She hung up on me, and we haven't spoken since. The fallout has been intense. Our parents are devastated, trying to understand how everything fell apart so quickly. They don't know the full story yet. Sarah hasn't told them about the cheating, and I'm not sure it's my place to do so. Shane's family is furious. His sister, who I had become friends with during the wedding planning, sent me a scathing message accusing me of ruining her brother's life. I wanted to explain, to tell her that I was just trying to do the right thing, but I knew it wouldn't make a difference. I'm still struggling with guilt over not speaking up sooner, but I know I did the right thing in the end. Shane didn't deserve to be lied to, and living with that secret was tearing me apart. I've been replaying the events of the past month in my head, wondering if there was anything I could have done differently. Should I have told Shane the moment Sarah confessed to me? Should I have stopped the wedding? Or was telling him now, even though it was late, still the best option? I'm giving both Sarah and Shane space right now, but I hope that eventually, they'll both be able to forgive me for my part in this mess. I know it might take a long time, if it happens at all, but I have to believe that honesty will win out in the end. In the meantime, I'm trying to focus on work and my own life. It's hard, knowing that my relationship with my sister might never be the same, and that I've lost a friend in Shane. But I'm trying to remind myself that I ultimately did the right thing, even if it doesn't feel like it right now. Update 2. It's been 3 months since my last update, and things have only gotten more complicated. I thought telling the truth would make everything better, but it seems to have caused even more problems. Shane went through with the annulment, and it was finalized about a month ago. He's cut off all contact with our family, which I understand. Sarah is devastated and has been staying with our parents. She's still not speaking to me, blaming me for the end of her marriage. What I didn't expect was the fallout with the rest of our family. When everything came out, opinions were split. Our parents were initially angry with Sarah for cheating, but now they're upset with me for airing our dirty laundry and destroying Sarah's chance at happiness. Our extended family is divided too. Some relatives think I did the right thing by telling Shane the truth, while others believe I should have kept quiet and let Sarah and Shane work things out on their own. It's brought up old family tensions and rivalries that I thought were long buried. Last week, things came to a head at a family dinner. I hadn't planned on going, but our mom insisted, saying we needed to work things out as a family. It was incredibly awkward from the moment I arrived. Sarah wouldn't even look at me, and our parents were clearly walking on eggshells. The tension in the room was palpable as we sat down to eat. I could feel everyone's eyes on me, judging, questioning. Sarah sat at the opposite end of the table, her eyes red-rimmed and puffy. She looked like she hadn't been sleeping well, and a pang of guilt hit me. Even though I knew I had done the right thing, seeing her so broken was hard. About halfway through dinner, our Aunt Linda, 52F, brought up the elephant in the room. I think it's time we all talked about what happened, she said, putting down her fork. Sean, don't you think you owe your sister an apology? I was shocked. An apology? For telling the truth? Sarah finally looked at me, her eyes full of anger. You ruined my life, Sean. Shane and I could have worked through this if you had just kept your mouth shut. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Sarah, you cheated on Shane. You lied to him. How is any of this my fault? Our mom jumped in, her voice strained. Sean, sometimes it's better to keep family matters private. You didn't have to tell Shane. Sarah made a mistake, but she deserves a chance to be happy. I stood up, my chair scraping loudly against the floor. I can't believe what I'm hearing. Sarah cheats on her fiancé, lies about it, and somehow I'm the bad guy for telling the truth? This is insane. Our dad tried to calm things down. Now, let's all take a deep breath. We're family, we should be supporting each other, not fighting. But it was too late. Years of family dynamics and unspoken tensions came bubbling to the surface. Our cousin Mark, 35M, chimed in, you always were a goody two-shoes, Sean. Always had to do the right thing, didn't you? I left the dinner, ignoring my family's calls for me to come back. Since then, I've been avoiding their calls and messages. I know I did the right thing by telling Shane the truth, but now I feel I know I did the right thing by telling Shane the truth, but now I feel like I've lost my entire family in the process. The days following the disastrous family dinner have been lonely. I've thrown myself into work, staying late at the office just to avoid going home to an empty apartment. My friends have been supportive, but they don't fully understand the complexity of the situation. I'm starting to wonder if I should have just kept quiet and let Sarah and Shane figure things out on their own. But then I think about how unfair that would have been to Shane, and I know I couldn't have lived with myself if I had stayed silent. I've tried reaching out to Shane, hoping to at least salvage our friendship, but he's made it clear he wants nothing to do with me or my family. I can't blame him, but it hurts to lose someone I considered a brother. Sarah has been posting cryptic messages on social media, hinting at her pain and struggles. Part of me wants to reach out to her, to try and mend our relationship, but I'm not sure she's ready to hear from me yet. Our parents have been leaving voicemails, alternating between guilt-tripping me and pleading with me to come home and work things out. I'm not sure how to move forward with them when they seem unable to understand why I did what I did. I'm at a loss for what to do now. I don't want to lose my family, but I also can't pretend that what Sarah did was okay. How do I move forward from here? How do I balance my principles with my desire to maintain family relationships? Is there any way to make this right, or have I irreparably damaged my family ties by choosing honesty over loyalty? Update 3. It's been 6 months since my last update, and I wanted to share some final thoughts on this whole situation. The past half year has been a roller coaster of emotions, but I feel like I'm finally starting to find some peace with everything that's happened. After the disastrous family dinner, I decided to take a step back from my family for a while. I needed time to process everything and figure out where I stood. During this time, I focused on my work and spent time with friends who supported me. I even started seeing a therapist to help me work through my feelings of guilt and confusion. About 2 months ago, I ran into Shane at a local coffee shop. It was awkward at first, but we ended up talking for over an hour. He thanked me for telling him the truth, even though it was painful. He said he was glad he found out when he did, rather than years down the line when they might have had kids or built a life together. Shane's words helped me feel more confident in my decision to tell the truth. It reinforced that even though the aftermath was difficult, it was the right thing to do. As for my family, things are slowly improving. Sarah reached out to me about a month ago. We met for coffee, and for the first time since the wedding, we really talked. She apologized for blaming me and admitted that she was wrong to cheat on Shane and lie about it. She's been going to therapy too, working on understanding why she made the choices she did. We're not back to where we were before, but we're talking again, which is a start. My parents have also come around. They apologized for pressuring me to keep quiet and acknowledged that Shane deserved to know the truth. We had a long, emotional conversation where we all expressed our feelings openly. It was hard, but it felt like a necessary step in healing our family relationships. We're working on rebuilding our trust and understanding, but it's going to take time. This whole experience has taught me a lot about the importance of honesty and integrity, even when it's difficult. I've learned that sometimes doing the right thing can have painful consequences, but in the long run, it's always better than living with a lie. I've also learned the importance of setting boundaries, even with family. I love my family, but I've realized that I need to stay true to my own values and principles, even if that sometimes puts me at odds with them. As for Shane, we're not close friends anymore, but we're on good terms. He's started dating someone new, and I'm genuinely happy for him. Sarah is still single, focusing on herself and her career. She seems happier and more grounded than she has in years. I'm grateful for all the support and advice I've received throughout this journey. It's been a tough road, but I'm hopeful that my family and I can move forward and learn from this experience. I know there will still be tough days ahead, but I feel better equipped to handle them now. To anyone out there facing a similar dilemma, I would say this: always choose honesty, even when it's hard. The short-term pain is worth the long-term peace of mind. And remember, it's okay to prioritize your own mental health and well-being, even if it means stepping back from family for a while.